Hey everyone, this is Heini Zachariassen, the founder of Vivino and the host of this podcast. Today we're talking about one of my favorite subjects like data and numbers. We're talking about Rewind, which is something we just launched a few weeks ago. It's about what was your year like on Vivino, like you've seen Spotify Wrapped and Strava do. We have some fantastic guests to talk about this. I'm super excited about that, so let's dive into it. So my two guests today are Patrick and Paco, both Vivino employees. Welcome to the Vivino Podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Patrick is a quality assurance engineer with the enablement team and has been with Vivino since 2021. And here's a fun fact. Patrick is a member of a metal band here in Copenhagen called Dethroner.
That's correct.
Yes. Can you tell, by the way? I mean...
No.
This is a full package. Right? Yeah. Paco is a senior product designer who joined in August. And here's a fun fact. Although a very Spanish name, you are actually Italian-Dutch.
Absolutely.
There you go. How is your Spanish then?
It's pretty good.
That's good.
Español.
Yeah. You've been forced to learn it, I guess, right?
Yeah, I had no choice.
No.
Absolutely not.
And so with that, let's dive into Rewind. Let's get going. What is Rewind? Who wants to start with that?
Well, so Rewind is a concept where users are able to access all the data they basically provide to us in an easy to digest manner. So the concept is to be able to zoom out on Vivino as a community, learn about different stats, but also to zoom in and learn about your own contributions and your own personal stats.
Cool. And we've seen this from others too, right? It's not like we sort of really invented this, but it's just a good way to look at 1 year on Vivino, right?
Yeah.
Where did you take inspiration from?
Well, it will come as no surprise to think about Spotify with Spotify Wrapped, but we also know there's other companies, in fact, like Strava and many more that use this kind of format.
Totally.
And it's very interesting because you see everybody has their own set of data, and everybody gets a chance to provide that data to their users in a way that is very digestible, in fact, at the end of the year. And we tried our way within the wine context, in fact.
Which is cool because it's different, right? It's not biking or music, it's wine. So it's quite cool. So this idea came about from a hackathon internally. So let's talk about what is a hackathon first.
Sure. So a hackathon, or Vivino Hack Days, as we call it, is a 3-day event where basically everyone in the organizations are invited to set their daily task aside to collaborate and be creative to innovate new project ideas or concepts. And at the end of the day, have a prototype that could be presented to the audience. And that's where Rewind was born, actually. Yeah.
Did you come up with a name there too?
That's my dull dad humor. Yeah.
Oh, really? Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. And you came up with it within 3 days. You had something. That's not this, obviously, but what was that?
I think what we managed to do in those 3 days are quite fundamentally similar to what we now launched for real, but just looks way more nicer. We were actually able to pull all the relevant data and present it in a functional prototype in the hackathon.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. Okay, good. So next thing we're going to talk about is how at some point we decided to do this. We did actually launch it a little bit late. We went into January. Vivino and the wine industry is special because Q4 is incredibly busy. Yeah. But the idea or decision was made to do this when kind of late, right?
Yeah, it was kind of the beginning of November where we got the news that we were going to do this.
Cool.
I mean, it's funny because, since actually I joined Vivino, I heard about Rewind and this amazing concept. It was going to come eventually, but then it felt like, okay, now we're really doing it.
Yeah.
And we got to go fast because we've got a few months to do it.
And that's what under your table, right? What happened?
Well, we decided to go for it from a design perspective within the design team. Emmett joined the meeting, our design director, and was like, so it's happening. We're really making Rewind. It's not just a story about a hackathon of some time ago. And it was great because we kicked it off as a whole design process. Okay, where can we gain inspiration from? Which other companies are doing this? It's a format that we're not reinventing the wheel, and that's cool, that's fine, but how can we make it special within wine?
Yeah.
And Vivino obviously brings this angle of knowledge of their users, the data of what they've been drinking for the past decade and plus. So we've been looking a lot into, first, in a very scrappy way, which screens could be appealing for our users to view, which one would be most shareable, And then we dived into an exploration of visuals of like, okay, what kind of language can we bring to be exciting to our users and to provide something that is wine related and different.
Yeah, we'll talk through the elements in a second, and if you're on the video podcast, you'll also be able to see that. But I guess part of it is prioritizing. What do you need? I'm guessing there were 658 different ideas, or I mean, there was a lot, right? Usually is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had an infinite amount of ideas, in fact, but we kind of really looked into what's a core division that we can bring. Like, what are impressive numbers that the whole Vivino community as a whole has generated? And so we focused one part of the rewind on that. And then we focused the part on getting more personal in realizing, what do we know about you that is very special? Like, what have you been drinking throughout the past year? And which wines are actually your top rated? Sometimes it's funny because you might not even realize... totally. And then you had actually the national ones in between, right? You like a sort of a global view, then like a country view, and then you went personal, right? Which was quite cool, I think. Yeah, great point. From macro to more micro and personal.
Yeah, exactly. But you started in November, and obviously we were not sort of planning to release in the year. We thought probably too tight. Because when you started, you're in design. So turns out when you're done in Figma, you're not really done. You have to do some code after that, turns out.
Absolutely. Well, otherwise it would be way too amazing. But yeah, so after this creative process and designing, there's been a lot of alignment within the company in trying to figure out how can we get this out in a fast way and smooth way. And obviously there's so much data involved that you gotta figure out a smart way to go and gather these numbers as effectively as possible. Yeah. And that's, I think, where you guys did an amazing job, in fact.
Yeah, I mean, one of the benefits of a rewind is that it's a year in review. It's not live data, so it's a bit easier to extract. But given the size of the data that we have at Vivino, it's still a pretty tedious task to go through that. Yeah,
totally. Yeah. I think we should so we talked about when we shipped it. So we shipped it. It's live now for everyone who's listening and watching. So you should definitely check your rewind. But with that, I think we should go in and have a look at what this looks like and talk about the elements in there. So let's do that now.
Sure.
The idea here is that the users will see this inside the app, and then it pops up as a banner and say, hey, you should check your rewind. We probably sent it to on all the channels we have. But what I want to do now is just look through a lot of these elements and talk through some of the more interesting ones. So let's get going. First screen here is just, hey, here's rewind, and then it automatically goes, and what a year it was. But let's push a little bit forward here. We got some high level things here about how big the community is now, 67 million. We got more coming there. And then we have, the first thing is tell us what this is.
So this is one of the global stats that we have here. So that's the total amount of ratings that we have. The most popular day that from the last year was actually the New Year's Day.
Okay. When did we do the most ratings? So 200,000 ratings in one day.
In one day,
which is in itself pretty wild because it turns out there are 365 days in a year. So over a year, that is a lot of ratings, right?
Yeah. And additionally, there's an extra fact here that Saturday was the most popular day to scan on Vivino, which also
historically has been very true.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Let's get the next one here, which is interesting, right? And 415 million wines, so 500 million wines scanned with Vivino in 2023. Pretty amazing.
That's a very, very big number.
Yeah, it's a big number. Yeah. So here comes the next one. And this one is interesting, right? Because it says that's enough wine to fill 124 Olympic swimming pools. We did some prep for this podcast yesterday, and we started talking about this screen, and it said 25. And I said to you guys, look, I feel like that number is kind of small. And then we spent it was. And then we spent 3 minutes, and it turned out that 25 was the wrong number. The actual number is?
The actual number is 124,
Yeah, so 124 Olympic swimming pools. That's how much wine was scanned on Vivino. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A fun fact about this screen is actually part of the original hackathon idea as well, where we had these amazing big numbers, and how do you contextualize? How do you make those like resonate with the users? What does it mean? So we also used the Americans would use anything but the metrics unit as measurement, and came up with some fun
something that everyone would know, something Olympic.
Maybe
not. But obviously leaders is a problem maybe, so you want to do something else. But I love the idea of the Olympic swimming pools for sure. Okay, so this is actually my user. I'm set to the US right now. And in this case, the next one is, go ahead, the most scanned wine, right?
That's the most scanned wine in US.
Yeah, Austin Hope.
Yeah, Austin Hope, yeah.
Which is cool, 144,000 scans of this particular wine. Obviously, not every single wine of this one is scanned, so they must have sold a lot of them.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure they did good. So then we have the top list in the country. No matter where you are, you'll be able to see what people drink the most. So talk a little bit about this one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you get a chance to also see not only like the number one, but what are the top 5 in your country. And it's serious competition. In fact, when you see 150,000 scans, 120,000, 100, it's all like wines that have definitely been on the mouth of everybody.
Yes. Yeah. And again, like it also makes me think sort of, look, of every time somebody drinks a wine, how many actually scan it, right? And obviously we think we have a lot of users, but it's still not 1%. Or and then you think, holy shit, 100, was it 144,000?
Yeah.
I mean, if that's 1% or 0.5%, and those are big numbers. A lot of people had the Austin Hope Paso Robles. Let's say that.
Yeah.
Crazy wild numbers. Yeah. So, and then the next one here is quite interesting. It's about the average rating in that country you're in.
Correct.
What did you find there? Because that's quite interesting too.
I mean, definitely, we've been able to spot some patterns and see different countries have different averages of rating, and then you can start to also see, like, for instance, in the States, the average rating is 4, which you could argue is a bit on the high end.
Yeah.
But in other countries, maybe it's 3.7. So you start to realize that there is this difference in a willingness to give a high score. And
totally.
It shows some cultural different patterns, perhaps, but it also just gives us this insight on, like, okay, hey, you're a country that tends to be high rating, so that's kind of you.
Yeah. Yes.
But way more high rated than, for instance, the Cubans that have a 3.7 on average.
Oh, they have a 3.7.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Are they the lowest?
They are the lowest when you filter out the noise from the data. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I've heard this before. People say, "Hey, what about American users? Don't they rate things higher than, say, the Germans?" And with this one, I think we showed 4.0 was America. I think Germany is like 3.9, right?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I want to go really deep here, but does it say anything about quality of life? Why do Cubans do 3.7?
Wow, that's a big question.
Well, then you to kind of analyze that, you would then need to dig into what wines are they drinking, and
yes.
But I think the takeaway from this, so the span is 3.7 to 4.1.
Yeah, okay.
Like that's the span.
Yeah.
So I think in general people are drinking really decent wines.
Yeah,
maybe thanks to Vivino.
Yes, hopefully, especially these users.
Yeah.
So who had 4.1 then? Did you check that?
Top of my head, I can pull it up.
Yeah, let's pull it up. We can talk a little bit. Sure. But obviously, the question is, do they actually drink better wine, or is it just because they just a different mindset? I mean, I think in the U.S. people, are maybe more optimistic and generous in their style, right? And that could be a reason why, like, U.S. is a little bit higher. But it could also be in that 4.1 is like Monaco or something, because they drink really good wine there. So, okay, cool. So we talked about the lowest, but who had the highest ratings here?
The highest raters were Puerto Rico.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. With a 4.1.
4.1. Okay, but still a small span. But with these kinds of numbers, obviously, it's something, right? Are we assuming they drink great wine in Puerto Rico, or what's the deal?
I think you can contribute that to the fact, but that's many biases that plays in here, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But if you look at the numbers, they have 60K ratings and end up on a 4.1.
So it's pretty real.
I'd say they drink pretty good wines.
Yeah, it's real. Cool. Let's move on from the country, because I think that's super interesting to see how that develops. You could be worried that, hey, US would be a 4.3 and maybe France would be a 3.6. That could mess up like real ratings, but that just it's very, very close, really, and there are a few outliers. So cool. Moving on. And the next one is the most. Sorry, this is the most rated wine, right? So it turns out the most scanned and the most rated is the same. It isn't in every country, right?
No, there's not always a correlation, but at least in the US, it was very clear.
Yeah, most rated. Yeah. Something we have seen in our data before is that the better the wine is, the more likely you are to rate it. So if you drink a very inexpensive wine, you're less likely you'll scan it, but you won't rate it. But if you drink a really good wine, you're more likely to rate it. Then we have the social. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, here it gets more interesting again, because in fact you get to see how many comments and how many ratings you have per country. So you see in your country how much you've actually been, the country has been actively commenting and contributing to the value of what Vivino provides, which is these community insights, of course, that are only to be found on the platform.
In this case, 624,000 comments and 4.4 million ratings, and that in this is just US only. And then we're going to dig into the more personal. I think this is the real payoff when you get to the more personal stuff. And also, I think why we do this, right? We want people to use it and scan and rate every time, and then the payoff is something like this. So let's go ahead.
Absolutely.
Okay, wow, this guy is a big, that is me.
If anyone.
So I'm apparently among the 0.001% of all scanners. So yeah, I drink too much wine, and so that's good.
You scanned 586 wines.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah. That's quite the number there.
That is quite the number. Yeah, let's not talk about that.
Yeah, but designing there, if we can go back one screen, it was really thinking also, how can we provide some kind of numbers that make you really realize also that you have been doing a lot within the wine space, and you have been really contributing to the community.
Yeah.
So you are on that really, really limited amount, and it's impressive when you see it like this.
What were your numbers on that?
I was 2%, I think.
Top 2%,
Okay.
Yeah.
Still impressive, but not as impressive as 0.001. That's like.
What are you, Patrick? Where were you at?
Same as you, but
Okay.
I also test stuff, so I scan a lot. Right?
It's hard to avoid.
Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. And I rated 96 wines throughout the year. Scans, I definitely didn't have them all, but the rated ones, I definitely had them all. So yeah. So this is also cool. Again, people forget this, right? What did they rate and so on. So and it shows the top 3, right?
Yeah, maybe a question for you, in fact, would be: was it any surprise to you when you saw your top-rated wines?
Honestly, I think this is really good because I just forget, right? So I would not be able to mention those 3 wines or even close. And this is, I think, what Vivino is good at, right? Yeah. It will remember all these things for the future. So surprise, maybe not. I just had no clue, honestly. So I think if maybe you drink a lot of sort of average wines and then drink something really exceptional, but I just drink a lot of mixed things. So I wouldn't really know what comes up there. So. Yeah,
I think that one of the hopes there was exactly that one, that it would provide that insight that you drank some good wines, but which ones did I really think were the best?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah. Because some things you remember, and then turns out, but there's another one you actually rated higher. So, and then there's the social aspect here. It shows how many likes I would have gotten throughout the year, right?
Absolutely.
You're a popular guy.
What's that?
You're a popular guy.
Well, I'm sure some people get more likes than
Absolutely.
me.
There's some power users.
But a couple of thousand likes on the platform too. And then it goes into one particular wine that got the most social interaction. What was the idea behind that screen?
I mean, the idea with this screen was to go behind what really made that impact within the comments, and I got the most engagement, and that really provided value and sparked some interesting conversation within the community. Yeah. And here you can really see like what was a moment where you shined on the Vivino community and really got that attention from everybody. Yeah.
I actually remember seeing mine. That was actually a pretty nice surprise. I can just pull that up.
Yeah, please.
It was one of the developers who brought in 2 beautiful Georgian wines for a Friday bar, wax and all.
Yes, we have a Friday bar. Let's put that out there too. Yeah.
What? And this is my first time that I had a Georgian wine. It was really good. It came in with a 4.5 rating, and it had 72 likes and 4 comments. I usually don't get that many likes, but apparently my followers wanted to celebrate this milestone with me drinking my first Georgian wine. Yeah.
Okay.
So
very cool.
And also, I just realized that I really like this wine, so instantly went into Wishlist it and so on.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool that some wine just pops like it was like an Instagram story or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool. Good. We have a couple of more screens to go here, and I know one of them is one of the last ones is really quite popular and people shared a lot. We looked at how much people shared and so on, but let's go to. We're still on mine now, right?
Yeah, back to yours. Yeah.
So this was the highest rated from me. It was an Opus One. I gave it a 4.7. It's a decent wine. Let's put that out there. But yeah, good. And then it lists all the top rated wines, the Opus Ones up there, and so on. And then this one I want to talk a little bit about. So this is the final screen here. Let Paco, how about give us some ideas about this particular screen?
Absolutely. Well, yeah. During the ideation phase, we were also thinking a lot. What is really unique value that we can provide to people that check their rewinds?
Yeah.
And is this historical information about what were you into last year? And even in the design process, we're thinking, what were you in 5 years ago? And what's it been, your journey in terms of what have you been drinking of red wines? What have you been drinking of white, sparkling, fortified, and so on? And so we really wanted to provide an overview of, compared to last year, how's your wine journey? Yeah. Have you been open to try something that wasn't there before? And for instance, in your case, okay, we see you're pretty steady on the red wine being your favorite.
Guess I like the red wine, yeah.
But still, you've been drinking 5% more red wine than last year, and your sparkling has decreased, for instance.
Yeah,
okay,
tough year.
Not ideal. Yeah, and this is something that really is inspiring us with idea for already next year, because we saw that in fact this got a lot of shares, a lot of engagement. People really seem to care about this kind of information, and it makes sense, and it inspires us to think, what can we do along these lines in the coming rewinds?
Was this the most popular screen, the most shared screen, you think?
Yes, I do think so. From what we saw on various socials, we were tagged. This came up kind of
a lot.
I would say.
So, and did you get this from someone else, Spotify, or does someone else do this? I mean, if it was Patrick on Spotify, it would just be metal 100% all the way, right? It's really
no, I have kids.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I gotta say, not per se directly, but perhaps you can think in Spotify, maybe you get a comparison of you were listening more indie soul last year, and now you're listening more to rock. But
I would think that this one, especially for me, that clearly uses this a lot and have used it for many years, starting to look at a graph could be really interesting to you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. If you don't rate enough wines, it becomes tricky, but it'd be fun to see as a graph. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, on Vivino, we have taste profiles, and you can see how your taste profile is and potentially how other people's profiles are. And there's so much that we can do with that to really give you that overview over time, and to make you also realize, I haven't explored Georgian wines.
No, exactly.
Yeah. I want to go there and see.
Because you can take this one even deeper. You can say, you're just moving everything to Burgundy now. You're only you can go even deeper on this if people use it a lot, right?
Absolutely. And then the inferred kind of, how can I say that? Inferred opinions you can have based on this, and say, okay, you seem to drink a lot of this Italian wine, which is very similar eventually to this type of Spanish wine. Why don't you go and explore that?
The recommendations,
Recommendations, which is also what we hope to bring beyond like a rewind, but just very concretely within product.
So we're going to dig a little bit into in a second what ideas we get for next year and so on, because we're definitely going to do this every year now. Are there any? Was that the last screen? I think it was.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you're not a premium member, you also get that introduction screen to that to see the benefits of that from premium.
Yeah. Just a reminder. Yeah. You got to sign up for premium. Cool. So okay, it's out there. It's been out there for a few weeks, and again, you should all check it if you haven't seen your own yet. So how has the reception been? Did people look at this, or what happened?
The perception was great. Like really, besides what mentioned, the loads of shares that we got throughout the whole platforms, we just know that the numbers are pretty good. We have more than 300 people that have been.
300 people, 300,000.
Yes.
Thank you. I got worried there for a second.
You're like, the numbers are great. Like 300 people. No, yes, 300,000 unique views to the various rewinds. And we know that people are excited about it, and they've already been sharing so much feedback about other things that they would like to see in there and so on.
We're going to get to that in a second, what actually we maybe wanted to do but didn't make this year, and what we think we're going to do next year. But any other things we sort of feel, did anyone get mad at it, or any sort of fun things we got out of the reactions from people?
If people got mad at
Oh, you never know. Like why is there only one wine in here or something?
That's a great point. I mean, no one got particularly mad.
Not this time. Not this time.
I think in general the reaction was incredibly positive.
Yeah, okay.
Of really like, oh wow, I didn't know that I was so positive about this style of wine.
Yeah.
And, so lots of support really, and lots of confirmation that you guys in the hackathon were onto something big over there.
Yeah, totally. So 300,000. Are we going to hit 1 million next year then, or what's the deal?
That's a goal for sure.
I would definitely expect so, because this year it came out of the blue, right? No one
Yeah.
anticipated it. It was just there all of a sudden.
Exactly.
So I think this will build on. Yeah.
Definitely, because so what is the objective here? Obviously, we want people to engage more with Vivino and rate every time they drink. But now they see there is a payoff, and that could change their behavior, right?
Exactly. There's now incentives for
Yes.
you to engage more frequent, and there's also the user loyalty aspect. Like you give us data, and we also show the data to you in a
Yes.
nicely packed way.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of educational opportunities.
Yes.
Like maybe you see, you can also add tasting notes. Maybe I should do that, and so on. So there's many opportunities.
It's probably too early, but did we see any behavior change in the user? Do they rate more now that we launched this? That's too early, right?
We haven't run those numbers.
No. That's for another podcast, I guess. Cool. Let's move into what we, maybe something was out of scope. We didn't make it this year, or some of the ideas that popped up and said, wow, we really want to make this next year. Where do you want to start with that?
So I don't know if I should start this, because I think the opportunities are endless. There's so many cool ways that we can present data, and there's so many aspects of interesting data that we can highlight. But it also, one of the things that we learned is users are the data is very diverse. So it's hard to come up with one approach that fits all. That's not going to happen. So maybe we'll make it more dynamic to different user profiles.
Okay.
Adventurous raters, frequent raters, newcomers, and so on. I think we could make more interesting dynamic rewinds for those.
So where it was like one line, one storyline. Now you could have like 3 different paths depending on behavior.
Yeah, and even with the storyline that we had this year, we didn't have the time to make the negative. Like, okay, you didn't have enough ratings for you to have this screen. Let us explain how you could go about it. Now we just skip it if you don't have enough, unfortunately, right? But that's also a big improvement we could do.
So poke them a little bit.
To educate them.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. Any particular screens that you think are missing, or we definitely want to do next year?
There is definitely some screens and some interactions that we were thinking about. We were also imagining the potential of a little quiz.
Oh yeah.
Within the rewind in itself, like kind of. Now we tell you how many Olympic swimming pools.
Which turned out we had guessed that wrong.
Great start. We'll be precise next
year.
But how about instead also asking that? Because when you realize the numbers, they are impressive. You're like, what we as Vivino community have pulled up these numbers, that's incredible. Yeah. So how about asking that? Is it 50 million, 500 million,
that's cool.
or 750 million? And so we want to add an interactivity element that is more active and a bit less passive. Double down on the storylines for sure. In fact, trying to understand, are you more of a community person, or are you more of a person that is into for the learnings within in like adventures and so on? Yeah. And based on that, double down also on the comparison numbers that we talked about earlier. What have we seen you've been doing in the journey? And on a technical level, also loads of other things, because, for instance, right now, you open up Rewind and you're led on the web.
Yeah, it's web-based,
So that's one thing. And obviously, we want to house it and package it better and have it more integrated with Vivino.
Okay, very cool. You said the quiz part, and I've seen, not specifically as this style, but you could also go personal there and say,
exactly.
with like a red wine, how much of your wine was red? Is it 67% or 88 or whatever? That could be fun.
How many styles did you try? How many grapes?
Yeah.
Have a guess.
Yes, exactly.
If you overshoot it,
that could
go
be
out, try some new.
Yes, that could be a lot of fun too, right?
Yeah. Or even you could put down there like your top 5 and be like, do you know what the order is from first to last? Like,
rank them accurately.
Like, I don't know myself. Who am I?
Any particular data points that for some reason didn't make it, or new ideas that we want to do next year?
I think there's a lot of things that didn't make it, but I think we actually hit the target on what we set out to achieve with this one, except for the fallback if you don't have enough data for us to show. True. I think that was primarily the only descoped feature.
Yeah, and obviously we have a lot of users that use it occasionally, right? So they would maybe scan a few wines and rate a few, but not that much. The cool thing here was that you'd still get the global view and the national view at least, right?
Exactly. There's still some value to it. You'll get to know the community and see the power of Vivino.
Yes.
How many ratings go into it.
Yeah, and next year make sure you rate more. Yeah. So another thing that I know you guys have been talking about is the sort of achievements and gamification. We have that in the app where you say, hey, you're now an ambassador, you had this many Pinots from California, whatever. And that was not in here. Was that something you want to do next year?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We know that for the users that care about these achievements within the app, it was a bit of a disappointment to not see that mentioned within Rewind. Yeah. So that's a great opportunity for us to actually double down on that and be like, hey, you went from this level to this level within the app in this year, in this style. And that's something that, adds a whole new layer of almost of game to this experience.
Totally. But we talk about people getting mad, or I talked about it, nobody else did. But this is where people get like competitive too. If there's something of a rank involved or an achievement, people get very engaged.
Yeah. But it could also be cool to surface that. Okay, you progressed this much in your country rank, or
totally.
Yeah.
And what if it goes down? Do you want to tell at that point?
I mean, you probably won't, right? Of course.
Maybe.
It's funny. Yeah. It's funny because we've obviously we spoke with a lot of users also, and people tend to be like, I don't really care about my rank, but why did my rank go down?
Exactly.
It's rigged.
It's not really for me, but why the?
Yeah. So you see that there is something psychological there. I still want to perform well, you know.
Yes. So they do care. So the other part also was like wish listing. People use that feature quite a lot, and we could also surface that and say, hey, this one's been on the wish list for 4 years now. It's time. Something like that, right?
That's a great one. That's a good example, surfacing that kind of information, but also like when you're showing the various rankings of the country, maybe that sparks my interest, as you were mentioning the Georgian wine example. How about then I can wishlist that, or I can go straight away into a purchasing journey and flow and get that wine. Because now I know that I want it, let me get it. That's definitely something to bring next year.
So it could move people. And obviously, you say next year probably be inside the app properly, which would make some of these sort of clickability a little bit easier probably because we go out on web and then go back. So that would make total sense to integrate it more there, I would say,
Yeah.
Another thing here was sound. Was there sound on here or was there not?
There was an idea to include sound, and I think you suggested a soundtrack, but it didn't make the final cut.
It didn't make the. Was it his particular music we didn't like, or was it just the?
It was more the challenge, right?
Yeah.
Well, we received the feedback of some users that were trying to raise the volume and be like, I think something's broken.
They expected it, right?
Yeah, I mean, they know Spotify rap, so that's full of music, right?
Yeah. This is not going to be full of wine. Well, it is, but not literally, but yes. But I mean, for Spotify, that makes a lot of sense. But it'd be fun to have something going a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, maybe video content would also be interesting. Maybe you are the top rater of a winery, and wineries can collaborate with us, and you can maybe get a greeting or like an update from the winery. So that would also be really cool. That's a great idea, and we saw that on Spotify too, which was really smart, right? Yeah. But it feels like personal. Hey, you gave us a whatever rating. Thank you very much. Yeah. So that's it for today, for the 5th episode of the Vivino Podcast. Let us know what you think about Rewind, and make sure you try it and share it everywhere. And if something's missing, let us know. Also, send us an email on podcast@vivino.com. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to, if you have a question or something, send it all to us. Also, make sure you comment and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you, Patrick and Paco. This was great, and thank you to our listeners. A pleasure. Thank you for having us.